Hello and welcome back to the Red Jacket Lawyers channel on another little episode on capital companies. We've introduced those over the past videos and had a look at all of them at a high level. Today is the first of what is probably going to be two videos that provide somewhat of a deep dive into setting up a GmbH in Germany. And it's basically going to be for expats and international founders. So I hope you like the idea. If you do so, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. So I've already commenced the recap, and the idea of the GmbH, Gesellschaft mit beschränkter Haftung, which literally means a company with limited liability, is to provide entrepreneurs with a limited risk environment within which they can operate. It provides them with a level of asset protection for their own personal assets, in that as shareholders they are not personally liable for the debts of the company beyond their own investment. In other words, if the business runs into trouble, your private assets are generally safe. The GmbH as such is a combination of credibility and legal stability, and that makes it extremely popular with entrepreneurs in Germany, and it does a lot of the heavy lifting in German business. Now, let's have a quick breakdown on how to form a GmbH step by step. In simple terms, without any of the heavy legal jargon. It's, as I said, designed for those of you who haven't got a German background and who don't care so much about the nitty-gritty detail but want to focus on getting going. Your GmbH will have separate legal entity and it will only be liable with its own assets. To get it going, you need to meet the capital requirements for a GmbH, and under German law, you will have to have a minimum share capital of 25,000 euros. But that doesn't mean that you never necessarily need to put in those 25k in cash on day one. You will get through by putting down at least half, so 12.5k for those of you who are not too fast on the maths. And if that's too much, you may want to consider the mini GmbH I previously introduced, also known as Unternehmergesellschaft UG, which in theory only needs €1 in share capital, but I'll leave that for a separate video. Also remember, of course, in that context, but only in that context, if you've not fully paid in the 25 at the start, but only paid in, say, 12.5, you personally remain liable and on the hook for the difference. So if you paid in 12.5, you remain liable for 12.5 to make up 25. If you paid in, say, 18, you remain on the hook for the remaining 7. But once you've paid in the minimum capital, you are there. Also, you don't need to do that on your own. You can have multiple shareholders and you don't need to put in the same amount of money necessarily. So if we stick with 25k capital, you can have one person putting in 15 and the other person putting in 10. Normally that will of course result in different voting rights, but again that's something you can play with. What else do you need to get going? You need to choose a company name and you need to choose a company purpose. And both of those should flow reasonably naturally. When it comes to a name, there are a few but not very onerous requirements that you need to think about. So one, the name needs to be unique, and two, it must not be in any way misleading. So if you just name your company Consulting or Consulting GmbH, because that needs to follow, that's probably not going to cut the mustard, because Consulting GmbH is A, likely to be taken, so it's not going to be unique, and it's B, probably too generic. But if you call it Joe Block's Consulting Cologne GmbH, you would most likely be fine. Or if you make it Sunbury Bakery Bremerhaven, you're also likely to be fine. Your name will need quick approval from the local Chamber of Commerce, but that's a formality. And then, as I said, you need to think about a company purpose. That will likely flow from your intention. So if you want to open a bakery, you put in bakery and anything associated with baking. If you want to start producing cars, obviously putting bakery is not going to help very much. Having the name, the capital, and the purpose in mind, you need to prepare the formation documents. In English, they are commonly referred to as articles of association. In Germany, that's called the Gesellschaftsvertrag, company contract, or Satzung articles. The document lays down the company's details, name, purpose, share capital, shareholders, rules of how to run the company properly. And you can do so in as much detail as you like, and you can instruct lawyers to assist you with that. In the alternative, you can choose the template known as Musterprotokoll, which is basically a blank text to fill in. The drawback is with the template, you can only adjust the blanks and nothing else. With all your preparation in place, go and see a notary. A notary is a person of authority. He is not an employee of the state, but he performs an official role, which is quite complicated and probably subject for a different video, but you can't set up your GmbH without him. The documents need to be signed and approved in front of him, and a deed will be created, and ultimately that deed will be registered with the commercial register, the Handelsregister, by the notary. And once that's done, you're almost fit to go, but not quite. You will need a bank account to deposit your share capital, and you can either get that before you go to the notary or afterwards. But at some point in time, you need to put your money into the bank account, and the bank will then confirm for the notary that the money is in the bank account, and that's the point in time when the notary basically puts the cogs into motion. Keeping that in mind, each shareholder needs to put in at least 25% of what they have pledged, and the total must be at least 12,500, as I said earlier. So if every single shareholder only puts 25%, then you won't get there, because X time 25% still remains 25%, which is less than the half that you need. But in theory, not everybody needs to put the full amount right at the outset. Once the money is in the bank, like I just said, a confirmation goes to the notary, and he will then electronically register the registration documents with the commercial register. And once that's done, you can pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself, and be happy because you've finally come into existence as a company, and duly you will be levied some charges by the register. That's the start, but it's not the end, because once you are in existence, you have to tell everybody that you are. So you probably have to register with your local trade office, the Gewerbeamt. you will have to register with the tax office Finanzamt, and you can do so electronically via an online portal known as Elster, E-L-S-T-E-R, and you can obtain a tax number, and you will also most likely need to apply for a VAT ID, which in German is called Umsatzsteueridentifikationsnummer, which I admit is a bit of a mouthful. Last but not least, all companies in Germany, and that of course includes our GmbH, needs to register with what is known as the Transparenzregister, the Transparency Register, which basically is a list of people who ultimately own and control the company. This is also done online, and it comes with a small annual fee of give or take 20 euros. It's a step that forms part of combating money laundering. So if you fail to meet that, it's not looked at very favorably. So these are the things you need to do to get your company going. Part 1. Before long, we'll produce a part 2. Thanks for watching. Like us. Take care. Bye bye.